Let's see. I'm gonna let everyone else in.
Sounds good, sir.
All right. What's up, Mike? Hey. What's up, Miss Mary? What's up, Mr. Jones? Mr. Jones, no hat today. Mr. Burlow, I know you're driving. Rachel, Matt, what's up, guys? That's it, Michael. What's up, Steven? Hey, Clarissa, good to see you again. All right, so we're gonna get started in like probably like 30 seconds. I'm not gonna wait too long to make this happen. So what's how this is gonna work is we're gonna talk about instructor training. I'm gonna interview my brother, just so everyone's aware. So Action Karate started by my brother and his partner, Jacqueline Razai. They co-founded it together in '94. When I came on board, I was like a teenager. And at that time, it was like 13 or 14 locations. Now it has over 30 locations, 65 full-time instructors, and over 200 part-time instructors. So if you ever thought like you have an instructor in your school and maybe you have like teenagers that you've kind of depended on, but you're not sure how to actually recruit and hire and train like a full-time instructor that can take over your school, that can run it like without you being there, every second. Like I think you have to have your hand on the pulse, but without you doing all the heavy lifting, then this is going to be the seminar for or the master class for you because not only am I going to ask him the hard-hitting questions, like why is he not at the Eagles parade right now, which he should be doing instead of doing this. But also I'm going to add, we'll have opportunity at the end if you're a client of mine. So if you're in whether if you're a current client or if you're an alumni client of W Dojo, then you can ask questions at the end, personalized questions, and then I'll have a recording. I could send this to you as well. So, Master Brenner, do you go by? Should I call you Master Brenner or Professor Brenner for today?
I mean, you call me Grandmaster, am I kidding? You call me Solomon, call me whatever you'd like.
All right,
That's
cool.
married.
So, tell us a little bit about like obviously you started in '94. How has I think back then instructor training was a lot different than it is now. So how is it different now than it was back then when you first started?
And from the very beginning, I knew that the only way to create leverage was to create instructors. So we always had some kind of leadership program. And I think we did what everybody else was doing at the time, which we had a SWAT team. I think, I don't know who created the SWAT team, but it was like special winning attitude. And, it was like kids who came and we did a weekly or monthly meeting and they earned a little patch when they did so much. They could only be part of it if they were part of Black Belt Club at the time. And then we did something for the adults, like kind of the same thing. But I was super intimidated in the beginning with the adults because I was only 20 years old and they were like grown men that, had families and children. And, me telling them like, how to teach class or how to raise their kids or do anything. I did some of it, but I always felt like inside that I was definitely like had imposter syndrome.
Okay, so back then was it mainly volunteer or did you pay people?
Oh no, we paid zero. Probably we didn't pay anybody probably for 15 years. Um, we when you say volunteer, I don't really think it's volunteer. I don't think it's the right way to look at it. I was teaching them valuable leadership skills. We used the book John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws, and they would learn a law, whether it was I'm not sure in the very beginning, it might have been monthly. I don't think it was weekly yet. But they would learn a law, and I would also teach them specifically how to teach them. We spent so much money and so much time from the beginning learning how to teach properly, learning how to communicate properly. So they were learning all this stuff that they could use in their jobs, and many of them were professionals, engineers, doctors, lawyers, accountants, blue collar, white collar, didn't matter, but they could use it everywhere. So as far as I was concerned, they should have been paying me for it. And it was, I looked at it like the only reason we didn't charge for it is because I didn't want it to be a barrier for them to learn how to teach class, which is really I thought would benefit our schools and our students long term. So that was the only reason we didn't charge for it. But it certainly was. I didn't look at them like volunteering. I looked at them as I was giving to them in leadership class. And
So
hold on one second. When they're teaching class, it's harder for me. I can just teach class and I know that I know what I'm doing. When they're teaching class, I have to like teach class, watch the students in class, also watch what they're saying. So if they say something wrong, the student might quit that day. I'm the only loser in that situation, or Jacqueline and I are the only losers in that situation, along with the student. That person just goes off to the regular job again. So again, like they weren't like doing me any favors.
So how do you get them to see that perspective? Because I think sometimes that will be the perspective of the person is like, they're going to think, oh, I'm helping out here. And then thinking, oh, here's what's on my to-do list later tonight. I have to do laundry. I have to make dinner. It could kind of turn where they feel like they're doing you a favor. So how do you keep that perspective? How do you preserve that perspective?
I think it's two things. I think everybody sees the world for who they are, not for what it is. So for me personally, I was always giving value, constantly trying to figure out a way to like look at each person where they were in their lives and try and give them value during our leadership classes, during regular class, and also like them. Like if there were 100% people that saw it the way that you just said it. I think you're kind of saying like two different things. Like one is hey, I don't work here for free. I'm not like they, there were some people that definitely thought that and verbalized that. And, they just weren't like our right people. They weren't like our tribe. Um, but then the majority of people saw it the same way that we were trying to do it, which is we're trying to develop a leadership team and we're going to teach you how to be a leader. And the way that you practice it is by being part of class and influencing people in class. So I think the majority of people saw it that way. Of course, there were occasional people that didn't, and that's okay. Like they just weren't part of our tribe, but we did it for everyone that we thought had the potential and had really a good attitude.
So I know that we like to use the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership as kind of like a guide, as a book study. We'll do it in our meeting. So if you're watching this, like order that book, and there's like worksheets that come along with the book that'll help you guide your meetings. I just put it in the chat box for free, so you guys can have it. So just you can snag it off the chat box if you want to use it for your school. That'll be helpful. I didn't make it. I just found it on the internet, and that's what we use. So I guess if you're gonna start that conversation with someone, right? And I think it's important that before I even actually get to that, that they understand that like you're making sure you're providing value nonstop. It's not like they just walk in and it's like, oh, I'm help teach and then I leave. It's like, no, like how are you actually going to help that person grow and have a structured training program, which we'll get to later. Because I think when it becomes just like, oh, I'm just volunteering here, then they start to think about other things they need to be doing, and that's when they will leave. But the other part of that is like if sometimes adding money into the equation actually makes it worse, right? Like someone who's a doctor or someone who has just like a good income and they come in to assist once or twice a week, a class before theirs or after theirs, you giving them 12 or $15 an hour is actually making it worse than if they just did it out of the goodness of their heart because they enjoy it and it's fun and they like it. They love being able to share, right? Like if you asked me, hey Matt, I'm stuck. Can you come pick me up? My car broke down. I'd be like, sure, no problem, right? But if you said, hey Matt, can you help me? My car broke down. I'll give you $40. I'd be like, I'm good. Like, right? And then the money makes it actually worse as opposed to just doing it out of goodness of your heart. So I think that's important for people to recognize that a lot of times the professionals that we're really nervous about that are like, oh, and obviously there's different laws in your state, so be aware of that, of like whether you could pay them or not pay them, or whether they're doing it as volunteer. That's all you have to figure out based on your state and your area. But a lot of times, people who are professionals that have great jobs, we think, oh, they're never gonna want to do this. Oh, they'll never like they already may have a high paying job. Yeah, but like they do it because they love it. Maybe their day job, they do it to make money, but they don't enjoy it. But they love help. They love assisting in the class, either before theirs or the class after theirs, a couple days a week. And those people can be so valuable to the school, to the culture, um, and also they're like working professionals. They're not just like teenagers who are be helpful but don't have that work experience. So if you're going to start that conversation, let's start it with like an adult. Okay, they already have a job. Maybe they're a parent at the school, or maybe they're in adult class or whatever. And you want to start that conversation of like recruiting them to be a part of the school. You've done this, I would say, probably thousands of times. Um, and a lot of times it doesn't work because like like for whatever reason, not every time you do something is going to work, but obviously you do it over and over and over again. So how do you actually start that conversation?
Well, the first conversation is in my mind, believing that everybody wants to be part of a tribe. Everybody, not everybody, but most people also want to have the feeling of giving back and making a difference in people's lives. And I always find it so interesting, even people that have jobs that are clearly influencing people's lives, like doctors or teachers, will still come in and they'll still want to be part of our leadership team. And when I ask them, like, I ask them, like, oh, why do you want to do it? They'll say, because I get to have an influence. I'm like, you're a teacher. You influence like, these kids every day. And they're like, it's not like the same. It's not as direct. I don't see the impact as quickly. So number one is me having that mindset that everybody does want to be part of it. I'm not like scared to ask them. I'm inviting them truly. And number two, if you're asking like the actual words that I say, like, I watch them first during class, and you could tell like the people that are like kind of like, they're white belts for some reason helping other people all the time. Like they're just naturally trying to be involved all the time. And you can see that happening. So I would pull that person aside and I'd say, hey, Mr. Brenner, do you know what leadership team is here? And they would say yes or no. Doesn't matter what they say. And then I would just explain what leadership team is, which is, hey, it's a group of people exactly like what I believe you are. You're someone that's a fire starter, someone who clearly wants to help other people. And we meet once a week. We do the 21 laws of leadership, and you also um, get involved in class. I don't say volunteer, and you also do a leadership role in class, and we teach you the specific techniques. Sometimes I give them black belt parenting. We give because it's all the stuff how we teach.
Wait, tell
And
us what black belt
you,
parenting is. Like, you know what that
Black
is.
belt parenting is a book, very handsome author, and it's pretty much exactly how we teach. And we always had parents saying to us, I wish you can come home with us. They listen to you here. They never listen to us at home. And I eventually just took the techniques that we teach in class or how we teach in class, PCP, specific phrasing, specific wording, just, it's just the science of motivation. It's no big secret. And I put it into a book and made it Black Belt Parenting. And it's also exactly the same thing we use to teach class.
And
The
if
parents can
someone
use it
wants
as
to
well.
get a copy, or I know that some of my clients have reached out and bought like boxes of them, or like a box or two to give out to either like school teachers they have or parents. How do they get a copy of that? Or
They can ask you would be great.
cool. If you ask me, I'll connect you guys, and that way you can get some copies besides, just buying one on Amazon.
Yeah. So I would invite them on, and then I would have a schedule in my hand already, and I would just, and if they said yes, and it's very rarely they said no, right? Like you're their head instructor that are used to saying yes sir to you all the time anyway. They say yes, and then I hand them a schedule and say which day works best for you, and they look at the schedule. Usually they come in the day they're coming in anyway, so they come in on Tuesdays. Oh, I can get it. In the beginning, they did the whole day, and I really wish we stuck to that. We got a little wimpier, as time went on, like, oh, I can only make it at this time, like during my child's class, and we let that happen. In the beginning, it was, they got there 4 to 9. They were there the entire. If I was there, they were there. And every day there was like, one or two adults in every class learning how to teach class. Some were great, some were not great. And what's interesting is some of the ones that were so charismatic, like such great talkers, turned out to just fizzle out and just never show up again. After months of doing it, they would just eventually fade away. And then other ones that were like so awkward, so challenging, you're thinking, oh, this is never going to work. 3 years later, they're like this rock star instructor. My point of saying that is you never know. You just don't know who's going to turn out. So you kind of have to, like, if they have the right attitude, and by the way, their martial arts aptitude makes no difference to me whatsoever. They could be super athletic and awesome or not at all, makes no difference. If they want to make an impact in the world, I want to teach them how to do that, and I want them to do it with us.
Yeah, one of the things you taught me, which I always loved and repeat to myself, is don't say no for other people, right? Don't
Yes,
think, oh,
sir.
this person's never going to want to do it. Oh, I know their schedule's busy. Okay, but have you asked them? Like, you're just assuming that what they're going to say or think, but you don't know what they're going to say or think. So give them the opportunity. So, okay, they're like, so we don't charge for leadership team. And I know some schools, they charge for that, right? Like they'll say, okay, you pay to be part of a leadership team program. We're going to teach you how to train. So, like, why do we do it that way? Like, why is that what you're more comfortable with?
The way we started, and in the beginning, we really knew that leadership is where it's at. Like that's really the to grow a school, we always believed that, it's all about just the students, but to create a life for yourself. you need to have instructors, whether you're going to open at multiple locations or you're just going to have a giant school with lots of people. You need more people to do it. And I didn't want there to be any barrier in those instructors. So, and plenty of my, could easily afford it. These were like professional people, like easily. It wasn't an issue. But I didn't want them to think, uh, and, I didn't want them to think anything, any roadblock at all. Like, maybe the spouse was like, wait, now you're paying to go teach class there? Like, I didn't want anything to get in the way. So that's why we did it that way in the beginning.
If you could redo it now, if you could start from the beginning, would you charge for it?
I don't think so.
No, you
I mean,
still
we
keep it
do,
the
we
way it
do,
is.
we do charge for certifications now, to be fair. But like straight leadership team, no. And also like all those people became like really close to us. You know what? Can we talk about one more mindset thing that I think is super important?
Yeah.
And I think it's easy for me to explain it, but I think it's harder to be this person. John Maxwell talks about in order to have true like explosive growth, you need to be a person that does, somebody who wants followers needs to be needed. Someone who wants explosive growth and really wants to grow in that bigger way, from addition to multiplication, they want to be succeeded. They truly want the people that are in their school or in their lives to be better than them. They want like the next generation. And when I say next generation, it could be people that are older than you, but just are after you. So it's not an age thing, it's just after you. They want to be succeeded, not needed. And I can tell you, like, from my ego, if you ask, of course, I would logically say I want to be succeeded, but there are definitely times in my life that I want to share the answers. I want to give back, and I want to feel like I know everything and I'm the guy, giving the knowledge, kind of like now, I guess. But certainly in your school, if you want to grow, you've got the only way it works is if you have the mindset of you want to be succeeded. You want the next generation, again, not age, just the next people after you to be better than you. That's what you truly want.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important. So let's go to kind of the next phase of that. So we invite someone to come leadership team. They take a couple days during the week they come, or ideally they come for all the classes. But maybe now parents have more on their plate than ever before. Like their kids do way more activities, like now instead of just doing piano or just doing martial arts, kids do like piano and martial arts and ice skating and hockey and like a million things, right? So how do you go to that next step of like, okay, yeah, maybe they're learning how to teach, they're volunteering, but learning how to teach, right, for a couple weeks or months. How do you actually go to the next phase of like they're a hired instructor? Or like how do you figure out who goes to that next phase, who doesn't?
I can tell you what we did then. I can tell you what we do now, and I don't necessarily think now is necessarily better. I think it's easier for us to scale the way that we're doing it now. But if it was just, a couple schools, I think the other way is also fine. We didn't pay anybody. Zero people got paid. And I think what you
I
discussed
didn't get paid.
earlier,
I'm gonna send you an invoice later for many years.
I mean, we paid zero. And if you came to our school, you would see lots of instructors. You would think there'd be a big payroll. It was actually zero. The only person we gave anything to would be Sensei Michael, and he got paid in like gear and stuff that was sitting around the school.
Like
Like,
leftover
oh,
pizza
here's an
from
extra
birthday
t-shirt.
parties.
Yeah, right, 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 right. Like literally, like, and my thought process then was, I'm constantly teaching them. I'm constantly bringing value. Why would I pay them and do that? And if I'm in the building, I don't need them to be there anyway. Like I'm already doing it, and I worked in this school, for a very long time. So, um, we didn't. So what was the question again? I think I went down the
Yeah,
wrong
how do you
path.
get to the next phase of like, okay, they're there for a couple days a week, maybe, but how do you actually get them to be? Because the goal is to get people to be full. It depends on your school, right? But like, you might just want some part-time people. But I think ideally, the track that will follow for this conversation is like, how do we get them to be a full-time instructor? And then we could talk later about, how do you get that person to be a partner in a new location or blah blah blah. But just let's just say to like a paid staff member.
Yes, sir. Uh, you're going to watch them in class and you're going to see the ones that are natural. When you're running and you're in your school every day, you're going to see the ones that are there on time. They're there 10 minutes early. They're asking, hey, can I stick around for the birthday party? Like I saw that you're missing a person. Like you're going to see the ones that like naturally just solve problems. You hear about problems 2 weeks later that they solved that you didn't know about. They come in early to like sort the belt, and they're always like around. So they're like your A players. They're the ones you want to do stuff with. Again, if they're full-grown adults and I'm in the building, I don't think the step of necessarily hiring them. I just might ask them. I would think I just keep asking them to do more. and more. And like, we would do like, come to a birthday party, see how they do with that. Come to a hey, I'm going on vacation next week. Can you cover classes for me and see what they say? And like you said earlier, they could be the busiest person in the world. They're probably the best person because they're the most organized. The busy mom is one who gets everything done. That is so 100% true. You're thinking they have 5 kids, they work 2 jobs, and I just said, "Can you teach class next week? I need you to come from 3 to 9 for 5 days." Yes, sir, I'll be here. And they just figure out a way to get it done. Um, so I think just keep asking for more, and I shouldn't say asking for more. I think just giving them more and more opportunity until they prove themselves. And in the beginning, the only option was to become a partner and open up an additional school. So probably for the first 20 years, that really was the only option. We didn't really have paid position. The only people that we paid were teenagers. And that was probably didn't start until year 15 or 16. And we paid them only because I always felt bad, like they needed to have some kind of part-time job their parents wanted to have and like earn money. And I can also teach them about investing. We did a lot of like investment counseling. So, and I loved it. So I feel like that was the way that I did that. And anyway, we just now, do you want me to talk about certifications?
Sure.
So what we added probably, I don't know, 7 years ago were certifications, and certifications were broken down by each class. They happen quarterly on a Saturday. It's like 3 hours, and you get certified, in the 5 and 6 year olds or the adults or the kids or enrollment director certification. And that really was a game changer because it gave them a very concentrated amount of knowledge in a very short period of time. And we also charged for it because we wanted to see if like they were like super serious. And we charged like a very little amount. I think it's like $99. Um, but the biggest thing that difference it made was no matter how successful somebody is doing something new, they have anxiety and they feel nervous about it. It was like super amazing. Like it was people that could, in my opinion, could easily teach a class or could easily do it, all this stuff. Like they're so smart, they're so educated or not educated, but they were like super charismatic. And I would think, oh my goodness, you could easily do this. But when they took the certification, it gave them so much confidence. They could say the words, "I'm certified." And being able to say that gave them so much confidence. And that is for certification. I think that was like the big aha moment or the big switch for us as an organization because now we had all these people that were certified and we started anybody who was certified we started paying, so if they got certified they were able to get paid
Well, they were
as
eligible to get paid. If there wasn't room in the payroll, I don't think we would,
if
right?
there wasn't
Like
room in the
in their
payroll.
in their location, but depending on what location they're in, right?
Yeah,
Like not automatically get paid. Like, oh, you're eligible to get paid if there's room in the payroll, depending on whoever that, instructor. I think most of the time there is, but sometimes there's a location they have, 7 to 10 certified instructors, and maybe not all of them can be on the payroll. But they do it because it's like gives them the confidence to. Obviously, I'm talking about a small minority, right? But like definitely gives us the confidence more than anything to be, I can do it, like you said.
I mean, you could certainly go back to still doing leadership team after certification. I mean, our model became they got paid. I think I don't remember anybody that didn't. We always looked at paying them was just an investment. It was an investment in insurance for like if the person ever got sick. We always talk about in our schools that if the head instructor, the enrollment director gets sick, your school should still, and to me, it's always like the worst nightmare. Something happens to you physically or mentally or whatever, and you can't be in the school, or maybe it's to a family member, you want to go take care of them, and your school is collapsing at the same time your health is collapsing. Like that's horrible. But if you knew that like your school was in good hands, you had like a certified instructor every single day, and you had somebody there that was like doing everything else, like you'd be like, okay, I can take care of myself. Or I could go take, if you're taking care of a loved one or something, the same thing. So we always use that thought process. They're either insurance or they're the future of opening up another location.
Yeah,
So that's
I
how we
think
kind of looked at that expense.
yeah, the loss of like students is never as bad, at least for me personally, as the loss of an instructor, right?
Oh, without a
Like
doubt.
I would choose probably to lose like 100 students before I lose an instructor. Yeah, because students you can get back, like especially do the triangle codex, Jed knows, like you get students back, right? But like instructors, obviously takes longer and more difficult. Maybe not that number, but you get the idea. So, okay, so these certifications, they're designed based on like what class they want to teach. Why do it that way? Why not just do like a umbrella certification or something?
We found that this is for us. We found that certain people like certain groups, and I'm sure everybody's heard this, like I don't want to teach adults. That's too intimidating. Or I don't want to teach the 3 and 4 year olds. That's too intimidating. So they got to like, kind of decide what they wanted to do. And of course, once they did one and they got good at it, some people just stick with it, which is fine. And other people like, oh, I did these kids. You know what? I'm going to do the older kids now. I think I have the confidence to do it. And it's truly remarkable how often they kind of grow into the next level of certification. When I say next level, there's no like one is better than the other. But also, it's also super cool about certification is certification, in order to be certified, you have to do pretty much everything perfect. The people that do it, they might only teach 1 or 2 classes a week of, let's say, like the kids or whatever. They bring in like props from the dollar store or Five Below or something. They're so into it. Like compared to the amount of effort that like I think like we would normally put into it, like we put an effort in to make it a great class, but it's rare that I'm bringing props to class. Like they really like, oh, I have a story to share, or they just really take it seriously. And it's really wonderful to watch how they elevate the class because they're only teaching 1 class a week.
Yeah, it's so cool that they kind of like make it their own and take a lot of pride in it, is what it sounds like. So let's say, okay, they get certified, they come to a certification a couple hours on a weekend. Are they certified right after that, or like what does that training process look like?
They're taught everything in that class, and then they're before they leave the class, they have to decide when they're going to be doing leadership team again. And the way they actually get certified is their head instructor has a checklist and will either they do the checklist kind of like piecemeal, like they'll do like the first 3 things, like collect the cards, bow in, and warm up or something. Or the instructor will say, okay, Mr. Brenner, you're up. You're going to teach on Tuesday and then check off all the things you did perfect, all the things you did not do perfect, circle those, and then hand it back to you and say, okay, you'll do it again next Tuesday. And that might last 3, 4, 5 times. And I think all of our people have super good attitudes that like almost nobody passes the first time by design because we want them to kind of go through a little bit of a struggle and make sure it's perfect. Plus, we want our classes to be really great. And as you grow, it gets harder and harder to make the classes perfect. So that's, one of the ways that we have our checks and balances.
Did you say how long about that takes? I know everyone's different.
I don't know. On the best side, probably it'll take how long time wise? I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, on the best. And then when I say on the best, that's the not best, but fastest. And then 3 to 6 weeks if it's, takes a little bit slower because it just takes them time to do it. Keep in mind, all of this is harder for the instructor because you have to keep track of like, oh, you know, where's Mr. James in this cycle? Oh, wait, he didn't pass last week. What does he really need to work on? Then you have to like help him after class, remind him all the stuff. Then, oh, when are you testing again? Like in the beginning, it's like harder on the head instructors or the enrollment directors, whoever's doing it, to get it all done. However, the payoff is great if you have the capacity to do it to begin with. But it's not certainly not easy, I don't think.
Hmm. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work in the beginning and very difficult, but if you don't put that work in, the pain of doing the work is and training someone is a lot less than the pain of having no one when you need it.
Agreed.
So I think sometimes we get used to being like on the main show and I could run it, but I mean I've had it many times, like multiple times, like where I didn't have someone backed up and all of a sudden I'm teaching all the classes, and I've also had, and then it's like, and it's miserable. If you love that and like you're into it and you do that every week, that's awesome. But if you're out of it for a while, then you have to do it again, not out of like uh want, but out of need. Like that for me is not fun. It's very painful. But I've also had it where, we've had people turn over and I didn't have to teach one class because we had our instructors go through their certifications, they were ready and they could step up. So like you said, it's like an insurance policy for the school. And I feel like I know I feel the same way as you. It's like you sleep better at night knowing that there's someone else who could take over if you need it. And like that brings the most like peace more than like, 20 more students or something. So okay, so let's say now they're certified instructors and they want to, or you want to ascend people to the next level. Okay, whether that's now they're uh, so for certified instructors, they could be, that's usually part-time or is that usually full-time?
Part-time.
Part-time. Okay, cool. Let's go next level, full-time. What happens there?
So full-time for us are almost always partners. We have a franchise model as well, but they're also almost always partners with us. And I think you said it first and then you said it differently. It's not that I want them to. I mean, I might want them to, but they have to want to, and they have to be want to for a while. At the end of the day, so a couple things need to happen. Number one is your school truly needs to be a prototype, right? Like if you're thinking that your school barely squeaks by, who would want to be part of that? Like, you need like everybody wants to be on a winning team, and the school has got to be a prototype that they look at and go, "Oh my God, I would love to do this." They also have to want to be you at some level. Not exactly you, but I think they want to have to like your health, your fitness, your lifestyle of hours, the way you help people, the way you talk to people, the way you hold yourself, your confidence. Like at some level, they got to be like, that guy's got a good life, or that lady's got a good life. Like I want to do that. Like, how do I get involved in that? If you're struggling in your school financially, like, who would want to sign up for that? Like, I mean, some people that just, I guess, that are like the diehard, people, I guess, maybe. But for the most part, if you're going to get like an A player, the A player is already doing something as an A player somewhere else. Now, you might get someone who makes, $400,000 a year in their regular job, but hates it. And they say, well, you know what? I can make, 150 or 200 to start and then once my business is cranking and then open up a couple schools and do better. Yeah, but again, you got to have the prototype. And usually we have conversations with our people, like if they're like a certified instructor rock star, like we've had dinner with them, we've gone out with their family, we know their challenges. Does their spouse love them doing it, or does their spouse hate them doing it? They do it with their family, they don't do it with their family. And we know all this, and then we just have like a simple conversation, like asking them what their goals are, and we do it a couple times a year. And it's probably not like, okay, it's July, time for goals halfway through the year. It's more like, they're like I don't want to say we're friends with them, but we're pretty friendly, and we pretty much know them pretty well, and they're verging on the friendship with us, and we're just asking them what they want to do, and if they indicate like they don't like their job or whatever, and we start having that conversation about like, hey, we could do more. We also do our discovery days where we have like a formal talk with everybody who's interested. But I think it's more one-on-one, just personal chatting.
Have you ever made any mistakes with that that you would want other people to fall in those traps? Maybe pushing people maybe who weren't ready, or maybe opening up a school too quickly with someone? Like, tell us some traps or pitfalls you've fallen into that you would want others to avoid.
Lots and lots and lots and lots. Number one is there's a saying that everybody works to the level of their own incompetence. So for us, it would be, hey, they're a great time part-time instructor. They're going to be a great full-time instructor. Maybe, maybe not. Or they're a great full-time teacher. They can manage this school. I know they can do it. It's so easy. It's not that hard. And they're terrible at managing, right? So you have to kind of like figure out where their level really truly is. So we've messed that up a ton of times. When I say a ton, like a few times we've messed it up where again, we love this person, just like, at their family barbecues, they came to ours, like just like in the school for 10 years, like just amazing families. And then all of a sudden 2 years into like, management or partnership, it's just not working. Like it's just like they were a great instructor, but they're not the leader that they need to be in that department. So there's that. And the biggest thing probably, not probably, I know, is just character. We said no to people, and then other people were like, no, they're so great, you got to let them do it. And I was like, okay, I guess. And it's easier for us to do that. And at the time when we did it really wrong, was everything was going perfect. Like our schools were just all, popping in all cylinders. Like all the schools were successful, and it seemed like we could do no wrong. Like as long as they followed the script, it would be fine. Who cares that they're a bad person? Just follow the script.
Well, they're
And when
not
I
a
say bad
bad
person,
person.
I don't mean like a
Yeah, yeah,
bad
yeah.
person.
Yeah,
Just
we wouldn't
like
have that.
yeah, right. They're not like a bad person. It wasn't what right. It wasn't like they're on a registry somewhere, but like they they just like weren't specifically like greatly honest or not a super hard worker or like whatever. Just they didn't fit like the action karate model of what it really needs to be. And they turned out to be a disaster. They liked rumors, they liked stuff like that. They like gossiping. Like that is an absolute any signs you see of that, there's no chance. Like, one bad apple can ruin your school for years, and it did for us. So you do have to like see the slightest sign and not let your ambition of, your friend has a couple schools, so now you want a couple schools, or you just want to make more money and your in-laws want you to make more money. So I'm just gonna, I make $100,000 here. So if I have two schools, I'm gonna make 200,000. It's never the way that it works. And it could be the way that it works. but like it's if the wrong person, they're just the wrong person. I always look at it like if I would let them like hang out at my house when I'm not there, we're probably good. If I'm like, all right, I'm leaving now, you got to get out of my house, we're probably, we're definitely not good. And they're lucky if they're a certified instructor. I already want them doing that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. It's like you have to have like ultimate trust, and then also like I've talked to a lot of school owners in the podcast that are successful school owners. They have, multiple locations, and they'll talk about how they did a little bit of a stretch to open up one location with someone, and then they open it up, and then to go through all the work um of getting the right permits and the build out and all the training and all the research that goes into where you're going to open a location. And then, within the first couple months, they aren't immediately successful and it isn't amazing right away, and they leave. And now they're stuck. And now the school owner is like stuck with this other location that's not making any money, costing them a ton of money. And now their resources are spread thin. They're taking one instructors from one location to another, and their resources are just depleted. So don't make that mistake. I'll post later. I'll tell you guys a story. I'll post it within the next couple weeks or so about a location where I had to close down when I made a couple of mistakes, and I had to close down, and it sucked, and I learned from it. So I'll share like that story in detail to you guys later, so you can hear it, because I think that's important too, not just learning about the success, but the things that didn't work. So let's say, okay, they're working there full time. And how do you present them the next opportunity, or what happens after that? Like, I know I always talk about, before you get to that, one second, like if you haven't read it, I have like a bunch of blog posts in the newsletter about like having a career ladder, and I show you guys examples of like Chipotle, like what it looks like there. Like you literally see it at the front of like they have flyers at the front of Chipotle of like what it takes to join and what you actually get and blah blah blah, and how we should all have the same thing. So besides like that vision of it, like how do you actually take them to the next level where they are a partner, or they open up in that location, or do they open up their own under you?
Well, first, again, opening up with us should be clearly a better opportunity than then just, they could just go open up their own, right? Like they can learn some stuff on YouTube and come talk to you and do whatever. And they can do that. You have to, like, I know for a fact that opening with us is better than opening without us because because of the support and the structure and the systems that we have just make it so much, I don't want to say simpler, but certainly the roadmap, they still have to do all the work, but the roadmap is there, the structure is there, the people are there, there's all the support that's there. We would have a meeting, we would have a conversation with them about their goals, what they want to do, find out, and we would ask them very specific questions like how much money do you make now? How much would you have to make in the next 6 months? And remember, they're either owning a franchise or they are becoming a partner. Either way, they're putting money in. Like almost never do we do just like a full-time instructor unless it was a school that we've owned for a super long time and it's simply them working there. But we prefer to have everybody's got skin in the game. Like you talked earlier about the person walking away. That's what keeps me up at night. I don't want anybody walking away. I want them all to go through the struggle and also to get the great benefit of, either a partner in profit or some kind of equity or something. So we would just have that conversation. Now that we have the franchise materials, we would send them the disclosure documents because that's just part of the law. But there'd be lots and lots of conversation about their goals and their money and asking them very specific questions about what they need to do so that and making sure that the path is there. So if the person says, I need to make X amount of money in the first 2 weeks, and as an owner, in the first 2 weeks, there's zero chance of that happening. We're going to tell them that. We're going to say that, yeah, this isn't a good opportunity. Let me know when that, we have people that are like that. Like, I'd love to do it, but I can't do the transition. It's certainly easier. And, if you're like just out of college, you live with your parents, making an ownership transition, like, that's what I did. Like I didn't have any expenses, like or had very minimal expenses, didn't matter. But if you have, somebody else who is the sole breadwinner of their family and they have real adult expenses, mortgages, tuition, car payments, everything, well, and they don't have a ton of savings, like it's harder for them. So it's understanding where they are and then talking them through and seeing if we can give them a path that we're comfortable with. And I take it like I'm not trying, this is super important. I'm not trying to sell franchises. I'm trying to open up very successful schools and make people's lives better than they were before us, like clearly better, which to me means eventually, not in the first 3 years, eventually they'll have more time to spend doing whatever they want to do, whether that's travel, family time, hobbies, whatever, and they have more money. That's like my goal for them. And I take it like, and I have so much, I don't want to say stress in a bad way, but like stress in a good way, because I think it motivates me to like try harder for them and try harder for us and make sure we have everything in place. But that's what I want for them. I'm not trying to like sell them a franchise. I'm trying to like get them on a path that I've seen tons of other people on and make sure that they're the right person for, and also pre-frame them for it's gonna, sometimes people say, oh, why do you want to do this? I want to help people and I want a lot of free time. Well, the first 3 years, you could just take zero free time, and any free time you have now, just you're going to give it to the business. Like, forget it. You're going to be very uneven. If you do it right, and if you do it the way that I'm suggesting, and if you do all the stuff, you'll eventually get better. But we try to make sure they understand the path, because I don't want them mad at me later or not. I care about their family. Like, I don't want their family to be a disaster. I want it to be better.
Yeah, I think in the beginning it's always like a seesaw, like you're overworked and underpaid, and eventually the goal is you flip that seesaw and you're, underworked and
Without a
overpaid.
doubt. Yes, yes, sir.
So I feel like that this has been really great. Thank you so much for coming on here, giving a breakdown. What's gonna happen next? Was there anything else you want to
Just say hi to the people that I know. Hi, Miss Nancy. Hi, Miss Mary. Hi,
add?
Jed. Hi, James. Anyway, Sensei Michael, I think, left. So
Yeah, I guess he wasn't too excited about the whole thing. He's like, I heard this before. So what we're gonna do next is I'm gonna give people who are the opportunity, who are clients of mine, so either current clients or alumni is cool to ask a question. So if you have a question, you could put it in the chat box. Just type in there like Q or something. So I know you have a question. Then I'm gonna unmute you. You could ask any question you want. We're basically open books. Um, so just put in the chat box Q, and then I will give you the opportunity to ask any questions you might have. I think while people do that, I think the one thing you didn't mention, which we've talked about with me many times, is like making sure the spouse is on board, right? Because if the spouse is not on board, whether it's a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, if they're not on board with them becoming a full-time instructor or an equity partner or open up locations, eventually that's going to eat away at the partner and it's going to be a toxic relationship and it's going to fall apart. So you need their partner to support and want them to do it too. So, how do you get the partner on board, or how do you figure out if the partner is going to be on board or be supportive or not? Because things are not going to go as fast as they want. Things are going to be more expensive than they expect. Things are just going to be difficult. Like everyone has they're in a martial arts school and that's already successful when they're going to go somewhere else, or put an equity or something. So they just assume it's going to be exactly the same when they go somewhere else. If they open up a different location, or they assume they take over, it's going to be amazing, right? But most of the time, there's a learning curve, and it's difficult, and it's not easy. So how do you get that spouse on board and be supportive?
first thing we do is we ask the person who's interested. And for most of our people, I can't think of any that are not. We've known them for a long time. So we've had lots of conversations. We've seen them interact with their spouse because we do like leadership team dinners or even just like dinner with just them and their spouse, right? And I'll directly ask, part of the time and money conversation is like, hey, I know you pick your kids up from school. Your location is going to be 45 minutes away. Class starts at 4. You have to pick them up at 3:15. That's never going to happen again, for 3 years. First of all, are you okay with that? Number two, is your spouse okay with that? Like, what's the plan here? So we try and diagnose as much as we can with them. And we also will have dinner with the spouse or the boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever and ask them what they think. And of course, in the beginning, they always say, oh, I'm 100% behind them, 100%, whatever they want to do. I try and tell them all the bad stuff up front. Like, I know you're saying that now, having a partner like that is so awesome. They're so lucky to have you. But keep in mind, like they're not done work till 9 o'clock. They're gonna get home at 9:45 or 10. And then they're usually gonna be pretty excited when they get home because they just taught all these classes. So most nights are gonna be all pumped and they're gonna be like telling you 1,000 things while you're trying to like, get your life together. Or they're gonna be tired because they worked all day. And on Saturdays and Sundays when there's baseball games and dance recitals, they have to go teach class and run a birthday party. And then, oh, in the beginning, you're gonna be, investing all this money and getting none. Like, are you okay with that? So I tell them all the bad stuff. And then so And if they don't want to do it, that's between them and their spouse. Like again, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm there if they want it to lay down the tracks for them to give them the blueprint. Say, okay, we have all these other people that have done it. If you do the exact, in my world, it's always better to have a blueprint, right? So here's the blueprint, here's the tracks, and then anything you need, anything, everybody has our cell phone numbers, everybody has everything. Um, so we're there to be supportive of that, but we'll directly ask the spouse if they're okay with it, and then usually wait a couple days and then ask the person, hey, like, are you sure they're okay with it? Because if not, it's not going to work. They can't be getting yelled at home all the time for never being there and there's no money or whatever, and run their business successfully. Like that person's got in the ideal world, it's two spouses together. That's really the ideal world because then everything goes into one family. It's so much, they're working together, assuming they like each other, I guess. But yeah, for us, it is.
Yeah, and like I'm gonna get to Chris. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna get to Chris Burlow in a second. I'm gonna ask you on a mute, but just so for people who know, and if you're already a client of mine, you probably already know this, and maybe you don't actually, but like as part of the program that you do with me, like you have your first 6 month program, and then after that you have the legacy program, which is designed to help you create an instructor training program for your school based on your curriculum, your voice, your system, your culture so you can create your own certifications at your school. So if that's something you want to do, that's part of after the 6 month program, it's part of the legacy program that I help school owners do. So you can reach out to me about that if that's something you want to do for your school as well. And that's like besides the organic marketing, because once you go through the first 6 months, you know how to do that for the most part. All right, so let's go to and yeah, if you just try to copy and paste exactly what my brother does or Action Cry does, it won't be like genuine to who you are and your system, your culture. It has to be like you can take ideas from people, but it never really works exactly the right way if you just exactly try to copy and paste. So it's really got to be based on what you want in your system, your culture. So anyway, Chris, I'm gonna unmute you. I know you're driving because you asked about the certification process, but I want you to be a little more specific. So Chris, go ahead.
Sure. Could
Mr.
you guys hear
Burlow.
me?
Yes, sir.
Yep. All right, great. Thank you. Wonderful presentation. I align with it a lot, and I appreciate definitely your success and growth. So wonderful job. Yeah, we have a certification process, and it's worked out very well. It's definitely tied into our curriculum and our values. Um, but we could always make it better. There's no question. And if there was something that you felt was really effective or unique or important, I would love to hear what you have going on.
What do you feel is working now for yours, and where do you feel it needs to grow?
I think it's working really well. We certify a number of instructors each year. They are committed. Um, they have to go through they have technical performance, obviously, and we have a pretty strict curriculum of that they have to follow in the path of being an instructor, not just being a martial artist. But I would love to get them more inspire them more to be professional martial artists and not just teaching classes.
What does professional martial arts like for you, what's the definition of that?
Uh, Professional martial arts would be full-time staff member and school manager and eventually partner.
So I think there has to be a true opportunity for them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, for us, again, if you want A players, you need to have an A player setup for them, right? So you're not going to, no matter who it is, whether it's like somebody coming out of college, like Miss Mary's son, Miss Mary's on here, her son is a partner with us. Like, for her, she did everything right with her husband her entire life for her children. They live in a good neighborhood. They go to a good school. She makes him do well in school. She makes him do his homework. Like he goes to college. He does well in college. Like there's no possibility that it would make any sense for him to come out and then like, oh, you're gonna make 40 grand a year teaching karate. You know what I mean? Like that's not gonna work. So I think if you want them to be a professional, you have to, and every neighborhood's different. And whatever their other options are in life, it's got to be better, right? Like, and if you ask, like, I don't know if it's one of my goals or dreams, because like I certainly can't do it alone, but like right now, if as a parent, parents brag about my kid's an engineer or is going to school for an engineer or
Yep.
doctor, lawyer, whatever. If you say karate instructor, that's pretty much like a bum.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like
See, my
nobody's bragging like, huh, my kid's dating a karate instructor. Like nobody's bragging about that, right now. Now we may know on this call that that's insane because we can make more money, have more free
yeah,
time, be healthier, like all of that, right? So like we all know that's possible. But the question is it possible in your school? I think if it is, you just show them the opportunity. Like, hey, yeah, you can go to school to be I don't know, a nurse practitioner. Absolutely. That sounds great. Two things. Number one is you're gonna, you can make the same money here. And two, if they were a partner of ours, they can, eventually they can stop trading dollars for hours, right? Like they can create their
yeah.
own team and stuff like that. So I think you need to truly have the opportunity that is better than what their current opportunity is.
I would say that we do. I mean, right now we have I have six staff members that are making over six figures.
That's
Um,
amazing.
yeah, it's wonderful, and I'm so proud, and I'm
And he's gone.
All right.
Uh,
Well, he had a good. I think we should ask him what his system is. Six staff members making paying
well,
out six hundred
yeah,
thousand. How many locations does he
he's
have?
got five. He's got five
Got
or
it. Okay.
three or five. I forget. I think
Well, he's
five.
got five. Certainly that's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He has
Not that
three.
far.
Three. Sorry. Okay, three. I don't know why I thought five. Um, that's a son.
Sounds like he's got a good model then. Awesome.
Yeah, he does. He does great. So, anyway, we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for coming on here today. I'll post the replay so you guys can check it out later if you want to rewatch it. Professor Brenner, thank you so much for being on here, being so candid, open, and honest. And thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Power Tempo. Bye, guys.